Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, and you, my friend, are listening to Light Talk.
Hello, this is Brackley in Las Vegas, Nevada, and today we are discussing writing books, converting warehouses, trade shows, and Stinky Theaters, all on Light Talk.
And this is David, not in a Stinky Theater, coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore area of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers, Mark II. Welcome to episode 152. And hey, Brackley is here with us today. Welcome back, Brackley.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, our listeners love it when Brackley sits in for Stan. So we're happy that he's here, and we have some fun things to talk about today. Just a quick announcement. Later on today, I didn't tell you guys this, but my students are competing at, I think this is the third annual Chauvet Lighting Workshop Competition. They do it down at the Ricardo Montalban Theater in LA, and they're going to be like three schools this year. It's us, it's Cal Arts, and Laverne University. So there are teams of graduate and undergraduate students. They have a rig very similar to Hog Factor, and they present it to all these really super concert lighting designers and television lighting designers. You know, like Jeff Ravitz is there every year. A lot of people there. It's great. They cater the whole thing. It's a real wonderful thing. And my favorite is that this Ricardo Montalban Theater has pictures of Ricardo Montalban everywhere. Right? It's all over the place. It's really hysterical. He probably paid for the theater. God bless him, right? But my favorite photograph of Ricardo Montalban is him as Khan in Star Trek.
That's right.
Khan!
How many does the theater seat? Any idea?
It's a small theater. I think it probably seats about 600.
And are each of the seats covered with rich Corinthian leather?
Rich Corinthian leather. Most of our listeners gonna not get that, but he used to do this commercial. It was for Chrysler, something like that. He says, "Coming to you in rich Corinthian leather." But the way he said it with that accent was fantastic. Anyway, Brackley is back. He's back from SETC. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it, Brackley?
Okay, well, had a good time. I was in Louisville, Kentucky again this year. It was in exactly the same space as USITT was last year, so that was interesting.
Well, first tell us what SETC stands for. A lot of our listeners may not know.
Oh, it's the Southeastern Theater Conference. It's located in one of the southern cities every year. I've been going since the 80s, and Steve used to go a lot as well, as I recall.
I did, back when I was at LSU in Baton Rouge, because that was part of the SETC conference. But now that I'm at SMU, I'm part of the Southwest Theater Conference.
Yes, but interesting enough, the SETC conference is pretty much a nationwide conference. It's pretty much national. They have schools from pretty much all over the country. Even Liverpool Institute for the Performing Arts was there, where I've worked before. They had a booth. And there is a show floor, and it's not quite obviously as large as a USITT, but they're growing every year. And they have all these design competitions. This year, one of the distinguished designers was going to be Hal Binkley, but a couple of days before the conference, he fell ill and had to cancel. So unfortunately, we weren't able to hear and see him. But it was a good conference, saw a lot of good lighting designs in the competition, and Steve remembers that well. You and I started that competition. When was that, do you remember?
I'm going to say 1984-ish, 85-ish, somewhere in there.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say the mid to late 80s. Prior to our starting the lighting design competition, Scenery and Costumes had been there for years. Ming Chao Li would come every year and hold court. So we decided that the lighting should be a part of it. So it's grown exponentially over the years, and it's a really large conference. They have it's for actors as well. It's different from USITT, where there's actors, directors, playwrights, dramaturgs. It's the whole realm of theater there. So it was a good time.
Well, also, I think the thing about SETC is a lot of colleges are there recruiting high school students as incoming freshmen. There are a lot of summer stock theaters there that are looking for paid jobs, interns, and assistants. And, of course, there are theater companies there holding open auditions for their acting companies. Cirque is there, I believe. The cruise lines are there. It's a monster job fair. It's very educational. It's just a win-win on every level.
Yes. And it was this year. It's one of the largest expo floors they've had in recent history. In fact, I couldn't get a booth because we got our travel money too late, so I had to just walk the floor.
So is this for undergraduates or high school students or both?
It's for high school students. There are a lot of high school students there, a lot of colleges there, recruiting in high schools, and there's also, they do a graduate response there as well.
There are also people there, both academics and designers, who are presenting panels and papers and open discussions. I believe URTA has a pretty strong presence at the Southeastern Theater Conference. Brackley's right. It's the little conference that became the conference for the entire nation.
Well, thanks, Brackley, for filling us in on that. And Steve has our first listener question.
Yes, it's Randall. And Randall writes, I am a theater lighting designer and have been asked to help convert a warehouse into a church. Any lighting tips would be helpful. Randall, go no further. You have the three Lumen Brothers here who are just going to make your life send us a check after we're finished.
No, we'll invoice you. Just pay what's on the invoice.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you identified yourself as a theater lighting designer. So I'm assuming that this is kind of your first foray into architectural lighting. I'm also assuming that maybe this is your home church. I think before you start putting pen to paper, I think you and your committee need to sit down and ask yourself a few questions. I'll start it off with 3 questions here and let the other guys chip in, and we'll kind of work around this. I think the first question you need to ask the church committee is, what does the lighting need to accomplish? What is it going to contribute to the space? The second question you got to think about is, what is going to be the impact of natural light, if there's any natural light coming in? And finally, the big gorilla in the room, are you going to have video playback at your services? So that's the first places I would start. What do you guys think? What's some tips and things to watch out for?
Steve's absolutely right. Those are very important questions. But one thing that I always do is I go to some of the services, to whatever church they're in right now, or whatever space they're in right now, because chances are they're going to want to replicate that service style that they have, at least some of it. And it's really important for you to see exactly how much video they use, what type of colors they like, things like that. These are very important style questions that they're used to and the congregation's used to. Plus, it allows you to talk to the worship team later on about the service and to find out what sort of improvements they want to make. And actually, you could actually come up with ideas of what improvements they could make in this new space. So much of it is actually sitting down with the people in charge, like you would do with the director. In this case, it's the worship team, and give them some ideas because they don't know the technology. So it's important for you to be able to communicate that with them and have a pretty good idea of how much it'll cost, because in many cases, once you find out the budget, you're going to be limited to a certain extent. But nowadays, it's great because there's so many options that are relatively low cost. It's a lot easier now for me to consult on a church, on actually a modest church, than it was 10 years ago. And even easier now than it was 20 years ago, because back then the technology was a lot more expensive. Brackley, did you have any experience with that?
Yes, and if they're moving into a warehouse, they may be moving from a very limited church right now into a larger space.
Right.
So they may not know what they want. So another good idea is going to other churches and seeing what they have and taking them there and seeing if this is something that they're interested in. And the big thing is the budget, because they, again, as David pointed out, they really don't know what any of this costs, and just to get some sort of a ballpark figure would be good for them, and then you can maybe implement those in phases.
The other thing that I would keep throwing out there is, will there be filming going on? Is this going to be a broadcast facility? And broadcast can be a webcast. Doesn't have to be across cable. It can be simply a webcast. Or are you trying to document things for archival purposes? So you have to start asking yourself, how am I going to handle not just the sanctuary, but the space in which the congregation is? Do they need to have enough light to be able to see how to read their Bibles or to follow along in a hymnal? Are they going to be on camera? Where will cameras be? What are the shots going to be? I did back in the day a lot of sports. And one of the things I discovered early, particularly in boxing, is that, you have a boxing ring there, but you also want to light the audience, because that audience becomes your backdrop and you see the emotion on their faces. So all of a sudden, you've got to think about that congregation. Is the camera turning around and looking out into just a flat black void? You certainly don't want that. Is there video playback? You're going to have TVs or LEDs or a video wall projection? Are you going to add moving lights? If you're going to add moving lights, then you got to do your homework about noise level. You don't want a bunch of clanking, loud, moving lights over the congregation while they're trying to focus on the minister. And one last little thing I'll throw in there and turn it back over to the guys. Are there existing places to hang the lights? There may be. You may use a warehouse and make it very rough and raw and unfinished and industrial. But if that's not the case, if it's going to be a finished space, you need to start working with the contractor or the architect about what those hanging positions are going to look like. And are the lights going to be masked or unmasked?
Yeah, and something that I always say, and I probably said it 100 times on the show, when you're dealing with churches and organizations like this, or community theaters, find out who will be running the lights and who will be maintaining the lights. Usually it's a volunteer, so you've got to make the system simple enough or easy enough to learn for these people to run them and not have a problem with a light and not know what to do with it.
That's exactly, I was going to mention that. I'm working on a project here in town, and the two young men who want to kind of upgrade the lighting want to do all these moving lights, but they've never done moving lights before. Yeah. So I'm just trying to tell them that there's some sort of learning curve with that, and that they're going to want to know that. Otherwise, the lights won't be effective.
Well, one thing that I would always put into my proposals for them as a phase was training. And I would always have a simple enough moving light system so that I could train them in one day, how to actually program the moving lights. And nowadays, the boards we have, controllers we have nowadays, it's so simple. It really is. So you can do that in one day. And just, but a lot of it also is maintenance,
The maintenance on those things are expensive.
I would highly recommend that any type of lighting position that you put into this church is actually an electronic batten, like the new ETC battens, and several other companies have it, where you can control it from the floor and the whole thing flies into the deck. You do not want to be fooling around with ladders anymore. There's no need to. So make sure that they have it in their budget to have hanging positions that actually will come to the floor, and they're motorized. That is really the way to go nowadays. I was very impressed with the ETC system. I think they call it the fly pipe. Very, very impressive. And like I said, there are other companies doing that now as well. I think, who is it? Rosebrand. I think Rosebrand has a new type of rigging system that is controlled from the floor as well. So very smart, very smart.
Yeah, they do. It's just, it gets down to what the budget is.
Well, David brings up a really good point, too. You need to reach out to people. You need to call ETC. You need to call Strand. You need to call High End, Verilight, Martin, Roby, Elation. You pick the company and have a rep come see you. We're in a very competitive world right now, and it's a buyer's market. They will be happy to come visit you and show you their product lines. And the rep may come in and all of a sudden throw a big, a big wrench in the mix and say, has anyone thought about power coming into this church? You don't have enough power to do what you want to do, and there's half your budget.
They have 3 20-amp circuits. Good luck.
Well, with the LEDs now, you don't need a lot of power, right?
Yeah, but you still need 20 amps, to run the damn things.
So but you're right. 20 amps should be fine.
Yeah, 320 amps.
That's right. Brother Johnson, go back to the kitchen and turn the refrigerator off. Services are about to start.
Unplug the toaster oven and plug in the lights.
Been there, done that.
I have been there at a small theater.
Yes.
And they say, we're about to start the show. No one start the dishwasher. No
exactly.
One,
I think coffee machines are the most common appliances that will trip a breaker. I really do. For some reason, it's always the coffee machine. Hey, Rolf in Germany writes, David, I just read your book, Introduction to the Musical Art of Stage Lighting Design. No, this is not a promo. I'm telling you this right now. Anyway, David, I just read your book.
Is it available in German? It's available in German?
I will translate in German. You will
Is
enjoy
there an
the
audio
book.
version?
Yes, no, I don't know. There must be. Anyway, the question is...
let me just say right now, I would pay good money to buy the audiobook of this read by you.
Yes, I would too.
You know something? I'm going to do that. I have nothing else to do with my life. I'm just going to go do an audiobook right now. I think that's actually a funny idea.
But I digress. What does Rolf want to know? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Rolf from Germany writes, David, I just read your book, Introduction to the Musical Art of Stage Lighting Design. In case you don't know the name of it, it's the Introduction to the Musical Art of Stage Lighting Design. How did you decide what you wanted to say, and how long did it take you once you sat down and said it? Same question for Ann McMills and her book, The Assistant Lighting Designer's Toolkit. Well, Ann's not with us today, but I'm going to tell you one thing. It took me a lot less time than Ann took because Ann has a very complete book. My book, it was very easy for me to write this book because I just wrote down what I pontificated for 25 years in the classroom. And I love writing. I highly recommend writing, by the way, for everybody, because writing is fantastic. I'm not one of those people that will sit down and work for like a year on a book. And a lot of people do that. I don't have the patience to do that. So I basically write down chapters, and it usually took me about, a couple of days to write a chapter. And I had that whole book written in a matter of a month, basically. And I did it electronically. I used Apple's free program, iBooks Author. And it's a great program. And once you do that, you could transfer that into a PDF, and you can even self-publish it on Amazon. But you should publish it as an iBook and as a Kindle, because I believe that we need to save trees. And also, the lighting photographs that you use are a lot more vivid when you're looking at it on an iPad, an iPhone, or a Kindle. I think that's really important, especially in our business. I don't think the photographs in printed version looks very good. Plus, it's very expensive. It's very expensive to print books. So I don't know why students don't use more ebooks. I think ebooks are the way to go, because instead of carrying around hundreds of pounds of books in your backpack, you just carry around an iPad and have all your textbooks there.
Now, I remember season 1 when Steve Shelley was on, and he was talking about writing stage lighting. And the thing I remember by the time he got to the second edition was feature creep started slipping into his book. His editor had said maintain a certain number of pages. And I think Ann said the same thing. They had a page count they were supposed to meet, and both of them exceeded it, because as they started writing, more and more things became important to say. Did you find the same thing? You thought this would be easier than it was?
It is easier because there is no limit. I mean, the only limit you have is on memory. In the ebooks, you can embed videos. You can't do that in a regular book, right? Can you imagine? You'd have to have a DVD or something like that there, or a little USB thumb drive. But yeah, I mean, there are videos throughout my book that you couldn't do otherwise. It's really amazing. And I just don't understand why more people don't do this. It really is simple, and it's important that people write down their ideas because, I don't have any kids. I got to be immortalized somehow. So the book will do it, right?
Cindy in Michigan asks, "Hey, Brackley, you are the best Lumen Brother."
Whoa. Wait 1 second. Wait, who's
that's what
Cindy?
you wrote.
I know, but Cindy in Michigan, it says it. Hey, you are the best Lumen Brother.
It does.
You know what she doesn't say?
That you are the worst?
No, that you're the best Lumen sister.
I'm not the Lumen sister.
I know. So I think you and Ann are okay.
We trade off.
They're the best Lumen siblings.
Well, it should say siblings there.
Or Lumen children.
Well, I'm just going by you are the best Lumen Brother, so I'll take that.
Well, I think Stan, Steve, and I have something to say.
I know. Anyway, her question is,
I don't know. Let's just cut this question. I'm really
no,
kind of
I don't want to cut
insulted.
it at all. I think we should.
Okay, go.
Anyway,
go
the question is, what trade show should I attend in Las Vegas? I have just graduated and need to learn about all the new gear and do some networking. I want to work for a company like ETC, Elation, or Martin.
Terrible companies. Never work for any of those companies.
No. Well, there's really only one really good show in Las Vegas, and that's LDI, which happens every year. I think that's an important one. The National Association of Broadcasters is another one, but it does have some lighting companies, but it's really geared toward broadcasting. But it's still another option. One of the things I was going to say about this question was that hopefully in your undergraduate or graduate career at whatever school you go to, you are exposed to all of these companies one way or another. I know that David and Steve and Stan and Ann bring in people all the time. We bring in all of these companies that they network with the students while they're at the school, which I think is very important.
It's pretty cool. Hey, isn't Light Fair there right now?
Light Fair is there every other year. Light Fair is the architectural lighting show. I think that flip-flops between Las Vegas and Philadelphia. I'm not sure.
I think they're there
in
now.
New York.
Yeah, I think they're there.
They're not there now, but they will be there. I think they come in April.
In April. Okay, great. Yeah, that's another good company, but it is architectural.
It's all architecture, and so the theatrical lighting companies, you don't probably see the moving light companies there as much as you do at LDI.
Well, I would say why she's at LDI, because she says, I want to work for a company. So she wants to go into the manufacturing or sales end of the business, maybe. You need to walk up to everyone and say, I want a job. Who do I send a resume to? And you might find that one or two people will say, let's talk right now. Most will give you a place to send the resume, but you cannot be shy about trying to get a job. Walk up, here's my business card, here's my resume, here's my website, who do I talk to, shake a hand, and listen to what they say, and then move to the next table and do the same thing over and over until you work yourself through the room. Go to, since you listed ETC first, see what ETC is doing. Go to their seminars. Go to their demo rooms. You do mention Elation and Martin, and also they do the same thing. Find out if are they having training sessions on their lights. Then you need to go to that training session and see what it's all about and meet the people in the room. That is the way to do it. LDI will be a first date for you for all of these companies.
And some of the companies actually give seminars during LDI, which you can attend and then meet the people after the seminar.
I'm going to, again, bring forth the name of Steve Shelley. Steve Shelley says you have to be social. You have to be social. You've got to know where the watering holes are. You've got to go meet the people. You've got to make an effort. You can't just be a face in the crowd.
And by the way, I was kidding when I said they were terrible companies. Those are actually three of the best companies out there. So I was being just...
And ETC is now with High End, so it's ETC High End. So
that's right.
And they were at SETC this year.
Ah, excellent.
Well, you are listening to Light Talk with the Lumen Brothers. Light Talk is sponsored by...
Well, this week we welcome a brand new sponsor, Fragrances by Jacques Le Pure. You walk into yet another theater, ready to focus the show. After 2 grueling days of focus, you gaze out into the house and see it. The place where you will be spending most of your time until this turkey opens. That's right, that's the production table. You know that thousands of asses have sat in those seats behind the table, and you know that with every production table comes a unique odor, a stench, fermented from thousands of designers, assistants, directors, and God forbid stage managers who work there. Sometimes you luck out, and the seats were recently shampooed. But most of the time, the cleaning crew ignores the rows that have been soaked over the years with creative body sweat. You know, the oozing fluid byproduct that emanates from excessive synergy, stress, and unhealthy toilet habits. Yes, the production table can be truly a disgusting place. So what can you do? Well, Jacques Le Pure Fragrances has the solution with our new theatrical stench line of air fresheners. Just plug in the electronic odor ejaculator into the power strip and immediately experience a pleasurable odoriferous reawakening. For tough odors left by years of seat urination, Jacques Lepu's Heaven Sent not only masks these horrible odors with hints of jasmine and driftwood, we infuse the scent with lethal doses of Clorox and Lysol, sure to kill any germs and viruses embedded in the cushions. Jacques Lepu's theatrical stench line also includes our new fragrance, Hysteria. Plug this in when things are going south with the production. Infused with a touch of mint and skunk, Hysteria magically eases the I don't give a damn anymore attitude of a show falling apart during tech rehearsals. And finally, our Screw It, Let's Get a Beer fragrance leaves you with a sweet beer and ganja-scented atmosphere that cries out, we're out of here. We'll see you back here at 8 a.m. And just in time for the flu season, for those who order all 3 fragrances, you will receive our industrial-strength Heaven Sent Hazer fluid for free. Just pour the fluid into any theatrical haze machine. This will inoculate the entire theater from germs and odors. No more toxic than the DDT we sprayed on our children in the 60s. Heaven Sent is designed to sterilize everything smaller than a sleeping prop man. So stop sitting in the stench of someone else's failures. Buy all 3 of Jacques Lepu's theatrical stench line of fragrances, and never again allow the stink of that show to follow you home.
You know, this has to be big in Las Vegas on the casino floor. This has to be what they're using.
Oh, yeah.
I think so. That is oxygen.
Sticky floor.
Or 55,
the sticky,
or 55
sticky
gallon, or a 55-gallon drum of Ozium.
Well,
Oh, good.
Well, and now back to Like Talk.
When the sound of those rabid ducks in the background tells us that once again it's time for our favorite segment, Let's Talk About. Today's Let's Talk About segment is about interviewing techniques. That's right. We've had questions about what are the best interviewing techniques for lighting jobs and graduate programs. So I am looking forward to this.
Maybe they should all get some of Jacques Lepu's theatrical stench line of frequencies.
You should definitely get the Jacques Lepu's.
I think you walk into the room, hand them a business card, and beg like a baby.
And give them some Jacques Lepu's, Heaven Sent.
I think that would work out well, and then you'll certainly get the job or you'll get the interview.
Yes, you'll definitely get the interview. But anyway, let's talk about it. So interviewing techniques. What do you guys think?
Well, the first thing you'll have to dress for the interview. You want to make sure you look well and you look businesslike and that you really want the job wherever you're going to be working or interviewing in. Not that you have to dress in a coat and tie, but you have to dress professionally.
Tastefully.
Don't you guys remember back when you were young and hungry and starving, I guess, and you had a 5-minute elevator pitch? You came in and you said, this is the problem I can solve for you. You know, I can solve this problem. I know how to light a musical and not spend 17 days doing it. I can give you a runway show and you don't have to spend $500,000. I think it's about identifying something that you can do that they really need. So I'm not necessarily looking at an entry-level job here, like I want to be your board operator or can I be the usher in the house? I think you got a little bit of experience behind you, and you're going for that next move up the corporate ladder.
That's a good point. Also, do some research on the company that you're interviewing and see what they're all about.
Like Brackley said, do your research and find out who you'll be working with, who you'll be going to school with, who your teachers will be, who the director is. All this is so, so important because that way you make a personal connection.
I don't know. I was sitting in a room and people were chatting about a specific topic, and the conversation kind of ended, and this person got up and left the room, and someone very young said, "Well, he's opinionated. What does he know?" And someone said, "I don't know. He's the programmer for the Rolling Stones." So it always helps if you know who you're speaking to.
That's really important.
That research is so important.
How about graduate schools, if you're interviewing for a grad school?
Well, if you're showing your portfolio at a graduate school, make sure you know the show backward and forward. Make sure you know all the characters in the show and what you did about the show that was special.
And if it's a brand new show that's never been done before, I don't care. Just say, this is a new script. You don't have to go through a plot summary. You don't need to know the characters' names. If you're showing Oklahoma, it's nice if you can at least, call people by their correct name or Hamlet by their correct, as opposed to that guy with a sword.
And the other thing is never apologize for anything in your portfolio or on your you're putting your best foot forward, so show it all.
I know this is this seems mindless. Don't say anything bad about anybody.
Never.
Don't say it would have been great if the director hadn't wanted a blue psych. For all you know, the director was my college roommate. Be careful about saying bad things about people.
Yeah, and you want to be supportive. You always want to be supportive because people, when it comes down to it, they don't care that much about your talent. They want to have someone fun to work with and someone who's going to be picking them up if they need help. You know what I mean? Because we are problem solvers, and no one wants someone who's just a naysayer. Like, well, that's her problem or that's his problem. No. They want someone proactive who takes charge. And one of the things, again, it's getting back to those 12 habits of highly successful people. What can I do to make your life easier? I want to solve problems. That's what you have to do. I think Steve said it at the very top. It's like, this is what I can do for you. And that's one of the things I used to do when I was interviewing for teaching positions. I would always turn the interview around, and I would ask the interviewer, what can I do for you? I mean, what talents, what are you looking for in this job? Because I want to make sure it's the right position, and I can help you solve your problems. I can help you be part of your team, And that was always successful. Then you get into a conversation about problem solving and what talents you have and what you can offer the organization.
Which is what they're looking for in most places anyway.
That's right. Because we're lighting designers. We solve lots of problems. With Jacques Lepieux. So Steve has our final question.
Yes, it's William in California. And William writes, is it too late to find a summer stock job? Buddy, you're right on the edge of it right now. I think people started kind of looking back in January-ish. I don't think it's too late, but I think you're pretty close to all the jobs being taken.
At SETC, they had probably 100 places looking for people for the summer, and they had a lot of applicants. So mid-March, late March, it's getting a little bit late.
I did a fast web search for you, and there's a website. You can just type in Summer Professional Theater Companies, and that takes you to a link called www.cengage.com, and that lists all the summer stock theater companies by state. So there are hundreds of them, and you can go to Summer Professional Theater Companies. Just look, you want a job in Ohio, just look at the summer companies that are in Ohio and contact them right now. But I'd definitely get on it. I think move fast.
And most of them will list all the jobs on their website.
The best time to apply for a summer job is right after Labor Day, because all these summer stock theaters are really angry at their TD or their lighting designer or their props man. They're really angry, and they're ready to replace.
Come in smiling, they'll hire you.
Well, what happens is if you wait until January or February, they go, yeah, old Steve, he was a jerk, but he got the job done. So a few months, my stock starts growing up again because I know the system. So they kind of set aside all the problems I am to work with. But yeah, you want to get them while they're still mad at me. So I would say, right after Labor Day, right if you get rid of your white shoes and go back to brown shoes, that's the time to start reaching out.
Right.
I'm wearing white shoes right now. Is that a problem?
That's a little early. You're pushing it a little bit. It's Memorial Day to Labor Day. I thought you would have learned that from the question about cowboy hats. That white straw hat is kind of Memorial Day to Labor Day. Then you switch to the fur hat.
I like the fur hat.
I got an angry email about the black hats, and someone said I was picking on people who wore black hats. And they actually said, what about all the rodeo riders? Yeah. Well, okay, all right. I'm going to say to you, living in your mother's basement wearing your black hat, you are not cool enough to wear a black hat because you're not a rodeo rider. Rodeo riders earn the right to wear a black hat. Also, they get thrown in the dirt, so they want to keep their hat clean. But when they're down at the Shoney's afterwards, I bet they put a white hat on.
Look. If you're gonna sit on the top of a Brahma bull, you deserve to wear any damn hat you want to wear, okay?
Can you imagine this? I mean, there's not a lot of on-the-job training there. Go ahead, Bob, jump on the bull's back and go for it.
Well, they do it when they're kids. Because rodeo riders.
Yeah, but they're probably riding a sheep or a pig. There's a point when you get off the pig and you get on the full-size horse or the bull.
Oh my God! Anyway, you can wear black hats. You can wear rainbow hats for all I care. I think you've got it, man.
Urban Cowboy ruined it for everybody in Texas, let me tell you right now.
The Cowboy. Okay, well, those sounds of the luminoids in the background tells us that once again you spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, and just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk fun.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you choose to litigate, the law firm of Fleck, Flock, Flare, and Glare and their paralegal Snoot will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Las Vegas, and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to tune in next week when we discuss all these crazy things about the lighting business.
All that and a new sponsor.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Toodles.
Bye.